Welcome back, everybody. It's Rama from Junk Journal Divas. Today I'm working on more tea bag pockets. And so I am going to show you first what I did and then also show you some examples of other ones that I've done, because these are all beach theme because I'm going to be going on a retreat. I'm very excited. It's going to be the first week of June. And so we've got to create or pull together papers for 2 signatures because we're going to work on a journal cover and other things at the retreat. So I will next be working on putting some papers together. But today I wanted to show you these adorable little pockets. Now I like these because they're small, so you can add them to the bottom of any page. They can even go on a tag if you want. So I'll show you these first because they're kind of plain. I think I'm going to leave these and not make them beach theme because they're so pretty and I couldn't bring myself to cover anything else up on these. So these are several different layers of lace and all these little pieces that I added here. And then what I did was I had a card. This white piece here is cardstock. And then that way I could glue everything down onto the card. And when I was finished, I could put my tea bag on the back. And just to show you an example, this is the pack of the tea bags that I was using. They're kind of tricky because when you add them onto your project, you can't use glue or it will go through. So you've got to use double-sided sticky tape or something like that. You can see on the very, very edge here, there is a seam, so you can add a little bit of glue there and stick them on, and they take to glue really, really well. And then I just coordinated the ribbon, and for these I just put one little mini tag in here of my beach ladies. And all of these little tag images are from Lisa's Altered Art. Really fun printables in her Etsy shop, and they're pretty inexpensive. I think these are my favorite because you guys know I love lots of color. Get this string out of the way. So I used the background piece, and these are all pieces of trim that I cut apart, trim at the bottom, and then this stuff and a flower. I have some string in the background here. And again, I just put 2 of those little tags, and I backed all of the tags so they're really nice and thick because I wanted them to have a little bit of weight. I'll show you these. So for the shells, these are a die cut, and then I just inked them up, and I did an embossing glaze on top of them also. This one, you can see this, the background piece is 1 piece of trim. And you guys, I will tell you, the hardest part about this, honestly, is cutting up these beautiful pieces of trim. So this was a wider, a long piece of trim that I just cut a piece off to go on there. And I'll show you some examples of like some of these beautiful trim pieces that I have, and it can be really hard to cut them. This is another example. So I would cut this off the border, and I can use that, for example, on these that I'm going to show you. And also this part is a border. So if I cut it up, I can get a lot of use out of this. Like if I just took one little snip here, I could get a lot of use out of that. But it is hard to cut them up. I've got my string in the background. This is a piece of a plastic plant. I thought it kind of looked like a seaweed or something. And then one of my shells. And I have my cute little tags inside there. I put some buttons, and then I thought, what if I just make a pocket out of, because I have a lot of packing paper. So what I did, I took a strip of packing paper and folded it in half, and then I just glued down one side just to hold it together. So I glued that down. so it would, you know, kind of open up here. And then I cut this because the tea bags are, I think 2 inches by 3 inches. So I then cut these, you know, every 3 inches. So then I would just have, you know, a piece like this that was attached on the side, and I could put everything on here, but that being open on the side, it allowed me to sew things on. If I wanted to hand sew something, just made it easier to work with. So that is what I did to these. I also love these. So here you can see, whoops. So here you can see the backs. And the front of these guys. So this has a lot, these guys have a lot of different layers on. I just got all this stuff that I used at the bottom in Happy Mail from one of my Diva sisters. So I thought I'm going to use these, even though it's really hard to cut up. It's from a wedding dress. It's really hard to cut this stuff up. But again, like I said, that's the hardest part about these. And then these are all pieces of trim that I cut up. And then some string in the background. And I've got my fish, and these fish focal points along with the shells, I put some embossing glaze on it. And then on the inside here, and again, I backed these guys. When you put the button on, and you will see in my video, it makes it easier to sew things on like this when you can get inside the pocket. So I did that before I glued the other side and, you know, the bottom down. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is an example of a tag that I put one of the pockets on. So just to kind of show you. Here are some that I did previously. Now these two, you can see they're a little bit wider, and I use tea bags for them. The tea bag packaging, I should say. So lots of different trims and things layered up on there. And then here's another one. You can see there's lots of different layers there. And this one you can see I did a little bit of hand stitching. I also hand stitched the sentiments on here, a little bit down here, some stamped fabric pieces. And this one is a tea bag. This is an example of the one that I put on my tag over here. So again, you can see the tea bag, all the layers on the front, little piece of fabric and stamped fabric here. Another one. Now these, I did have more of them, and I kept one as a sample so I could just kind of remember what I did and get inspiration for when I wanted to make more. So this one, I put a little ruffle at the bottom, and I put some little paper embellishment pieces on here. And then this is one of my faux wax seals that I put on. So these turned out really great. I like this one a lot too. And of course this one, so pretty and my favorite color. So we've got some fuzzy yarn string on here, lots of different layers in the background. Again, some paper little embellishments. And this is a faux wax seal with a stamp under it. Some trim at the top there. So those are some examples of what I did previously. And this is the very first one that I did. So I've got a little stamped heart piece of fabric here and some lace. And these were for Valentine's Day. So this one says "Be Mine." Got our tickets in the back there. Now we're gonna get started, and I'll do a little bit of talking and some voiceover, just kind of explaining things when I need to. The process of putting these guys together. I just love them. I think that they are so cute, and I'm excited to start putting my ocean journal together. So let's get started and go through the process. Before I start on my pockets, I just wanted to show the shells that I put the embossing glaze on top of. So the first ones that I did, I just used the embossing glaze and it was okay, but you couldn't really see the details from where the shells were embossed. So I used my ink, my mini ink pad, and just kind of rubbed over them so that you could see those embossed areas and all the details. And then I put my the embossing ink on and my powder, and I tried a couple of different colors just to get a mixture depending on what project I was using. I used Tattered Rose, Vintage Photo, and I believe Smoked Hickory is the other one that I tried. So here you can see the finished product, and I'm ready to start on my little pockets now. This is the first method that I use that I'm going to show here, where I have the card that I cut out, and it is a 2 by 3 inches. And this is just a piece of scrap paper. And I'm just going to put some double-sided tape going down the sides to hold this in place, and or you could use glue if you want. I do use glue later on, but right now I'm just using the tape. And now my first tip that I have to share is to put your card down onto your fabric and then cut around it. And I just learned that from experience because I've made the mistake where I cut out pieces of fabric to fit on the card, but then when I go to put it down, it's not quite working out. So I have learned to just do it this way. And now I'm ready to cut that excess fabric off. And now if you can see at the top, there's just a little space here that I need to cover. And I'm not really super concerned about how it's going to look because that's also going to be covered up. I was thinking of using some lace on top, so you won't really see that there's, you know, 2 pieces of fabric there, but I didn't want the cardstock to be showing through. So I'm just covering that little space up. And now the fun part, I'm going through all these beautiful laces, and what should I put down on top of this? So just playing around with different ideas here. And these laces, by the way, are from Sheila at Boho Daydreams. She does beautiful, beautiful dyed fabric and laces and boho trims. So I think I decided on this piece of lace. And again, you can see I'm kind of lining up where I want the card to be with the lace here, and then cutting around it. For the next one here, I'm using the thick piece of trim, but it's just, it has a little bit at the bottom that it's not covering, which is okay because I usually like to put something hanging down like a ruffle or lace or something at the bottom. So I'm just adding a little bit of lace there, and then I'll go ahead and cut the excess off. And I'm just kind of covering the bases of these for now. So I am now using this piece of sari, recycled sari silk. And again, I'm lining it up, the top of it with the edge of the fabric. And cutting up some, like I said, this is the hardest part, is cutting up those beautiful trims. So this one piece, I just cut it, all the little pieces out. So I'm just using those as embellishments. And even that very, very edge piece, I'm using at the top, kind of make a nice border. And now I have the idea of just making a pocket, just doing the pocket. So instead of the tea bags, this is what I'm doing. So I have my packing paper. I'm just gluing down that one edge. And this is so I can add things to it if I want to do some hand sewing. So I'm just going to glue that down, and then I cut them into the 3-inch, little pieces. So they're 2 by 3. For these, I'm using some fabric glue and just laying the pockets down, and then I can cut them out. And I love the Mod Podge fabric glue. I always say that's definitely my favorite. I don't like the Fabri-Tac. I don't like the smell and the consistency of it. So I really like the Mod Podge. It holds really well and it holds fast. And it doesn't have that gel stickiness to it. So here are my shells. And just going to add some of this beautiful, beautiful pieces of a wedding dress that I got in Happy Mail. I added at the bottom here. And again, these are so hard to cut up, but they look so cute on my little pockets. So just going to add these. And these actually take really well to glue, so it just depends on the fabric and the pieces that you're working with. And now I have another piece of this was on fabric, and I just had to again cut out all of these little pieces. It just kind of reminded me of seaweed and corals and things. So these are all little pieces of trim that I'm putting together here. And then for my fish, I don't show this, but I do the same thing as my seashells and just put a little bit of embossing glaze on them. It just gives them a bit of shine and makes them stick out a little bit. So now I'm showing you how this will open up. And I'm going to put buttons on the very top. So I'm going to go ahead and sew a button on. And again, it just makes it easy when the pockets open in the back because you can go through to the middle. In the pockets that I did previously, I did some slow stitching on the front. So that's another great idea. I think that looks really nice. I used it to go around the very top of it just to make sure the fabric was going to stay down. So here I'm just tying off my button, and then I can go ahead and glue this pocket closed. And you can see I'm just using a little strip of glue and then just making sure I hold it down so that that is going to close up for me. And here is one of my pockets. And for the toppers of my little domino tags here, I am using one of my shells and just putting I use some fuzzy fibers, some ribbons, all kinds of things. So here's a close-up of the finished ones that I did. And you guys, I will link the other video of making these. I go a little bit more in depth into making them, and it's a bit slower. So I will link all those tutorials that you might want to see in the video description. And thank you so much for joining me today.